Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, I share real-life stories about family drama, revenge, comeuppance, and those delicious moments when karma finally shows up, British and American style, no over-the-top soap opera nonsense, just the quiet, satisfying kind of justice we all secretly love. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. Trust me, after this one, you'll be glad you did. Let me tell you about the wedding speech that still makes me smile every time I think about it. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, and there were no security guards dragging anyone out. It was just perfect, cold, calm, and absolutely devastating in the politest way possible. Imagine this, a beautiful summer wedding in the English countryside, rolling green hills, a converted barn with fairy lights, the whole Pinterest dream. Sarah, 58, widowed for 12 years, finally marrying again. Her new husband?
Tom.
62, retired mechanic, quiet, kind eyes, always in sensible jumpers and worn-in jeans. Drove a 15-year-old Land Rover that sounded like it had a chest infection. He wasn't flashy. He didn't need to be. Sarah loved him for exactly who he was. Her daughter, Charlotte, 35, married to a hedge fund guy named Rupert, had made it very clear from the start that she thought Tom was a downgrade. "Mom, are you sure?" she'd say, in that concerned tone that wasn't concern at all. "He's nice, but he's not exactly Dad's level, is he?" Sarah's late husband had been a successful barrister. They'd had money. Charlotte had grown up with ponies and private schools and holidays in the Cotswolds. Tom fixed cars for a living before he retired. To Charlotte and Rupert, that made him practically invisible. The wedding day arrived. 200 guests, Sarah's old friends, Tom's quiet mates from the garage, a few cousins. Charlotte wore a pale pink dress that probably cost more than Tom's annual pension. Rupert had on a bespoke suit and that permanent smirk people get when they're convinced they're the smartest person in the room. The ceremony was lovely. Simple vows, no fuss. Sarah cried. Tom looked like he couldn't believe his luck. Everyone clapped. And then came the speeches. Sarah spoke first, short, sweet, emotional. Then Rupert stood up, champagne in hand, and cleared his throat like he was about to address Parliament. "Well," he began, with that loud, confident voice that carries across a field, "I think we can all agree this has been an interesting journey for Sarah." A few awkward laughs. When she first told us about Tom, I'll be honest, we were a bit surprised. Mum's always had such good taste, and here she was with someone who, let's be kind, lives a very different lifestyle. Snickers from Charlotte's table. Charlotte covered her mouth, but her eyes were gleaming.
Rupert went on.
"I mean, Tom, mate, no offense, but you're not exactly what we pictured as a stepfather. The old Land Rover? The flat above the garage? We were worried, weren't we, darling?" He turned to Charlotte, who nodded theatrically. Worried Mum was settling. That maybe she'd rushed into this because she was lonely. You could feel the room freeze. Sarah's best friend Margaret went rigid. Tom just sat there, hands folded, watching Rupert like he was a mildly interesting TV program. Rupert raised his glass. "But hey, love's love, right? Even if it comes in a slightly unexpected package. To Sarah and Tom, may you have many happy years together. And Tom, if you ever need tips on how to treat a lady properly, you know where to find me." He sat down to scattered, uncomfortable applause. Charlotte was practically glowing. A few of her London friends laughed into their napkins. Then Tom stood up.
He didn't rush.
He buttoned his jacket, simple navy, off the rack from Marks and Spencer, and walked to the microphone. He didn't look angry. He didn't look hurt. He looked calm, almost amused. "Thank you, Rupert," he began, voice quiet but clear. "That was quite the speech. Very generous." A few nervous laughs. Tom smiled. "Sarah warned me her family had high standards. I'll admit, I was a bit nervous coming into this. I'm not a barrister. I'm not a financier. I don't have a wine cellar or a holiday home in Tuscany. I fix cars. Or I did, until I retired last year." He paused, looked around the room. "But there's something I should probably mention, since we're all being so honest today." He reached into his inside pocket and pulled out his phone. Tapped it a few times. Last month, I sold my company. You see, I didn't just fix cars. I owned the chain. 27 garages across the Southeast. Started with one in 1992, built it up slowly. Nothing flashy. No investors. Just hard work. He turned a phone around so the room could see the screen. An article from the Times business section. Local mechanic sells auto repair empire for £38 million. A collective intake of breath. Charlotte went white. Rupert's mouth actually fell open. Tom continued, still perfectly calm. The buyer paid cash. Closed 3 weeks ago. I was going to keep it quiet. Sarah and I aren't ones for showing off. But since we're talking about standards and what's expected of a stepfather, I thought now might be a good time to mention it. He slipped the phone back in his pocket. I drive the old Land Rover because I like it. It's reliable. I live above the garage because it's paid for, and I don't see the point in moving just to impress people who don't matter. But if Sarah wants a bigger house, we'll get one. If she wants to travel, we'll travel. Private jet, first class, whatever she fancies. He looked directly at Charlotte and Rupert. I didn't marry your mum for her money. She doesn't have any. Her husband left everything to you lot in trust, didn't he? I checked. I married her because she's kind and funny and makes the best Sunday roast I've ever had. And because when she thought I was just a mechanic with a dodgy hip and a flat full of car parts, she still looked at me like I was worth something. The room was dead silent. Tom raised his glass. So thank you, Rupert, for your concern. And thank you for the motivation. Sarah and I are off to the Maldives tomorrow. Private villa, overwater bungalow, the works. We weren't going to say anything, but since you brought up how to treat a lady properly, well, consider this a masterclass. He turned to Sarah, who was crying and laughing at the same time. To my wife. The best decision I ever made. He sat down. The applause started slowly, then built into a roar. Margaret was on her feet. Half the room was cheering. Charlotte looked like she'd been slapped. Rupert was staring at his plate like it had personally betrayed him. The rest of the night? Glorious. Tom and Sarah danced. People kept coming up to congratulate them, asking quiet questions about the business, the sale. Tom answered politely, never bragging. Charlotte tried to approach them twice. Both times, Sarah just smiled and turned away. At one point, Rupert cornered Tom near the bar. Tom, mate, he said, all bluster gone. I think we got off on the wrong foot. I didn't know, obviously. Congratulations. Really? Tom looked at him for a long moment. Rupert, he said quietly, I don't care about your apology. I care that you made Sarah doubt herself for even a second. That you stood up in front of her friends and family and tried to humiliate her on her wedding day. You don't get to take that back just because I've got money. Rupert opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Tom walked away. Later, when the newlyweds were leaving, Charlotte tried one last time. Mom, she said, eyes red, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean. Sarah stopped, looked at her daughter, really looked. You meant every word, she said softly. You just didn't think there'd be consequences. And then she got into the car, a sleek black Mercedes that had magically appeared to take them to the airport, and drove off with her husband. They didn't speak to Charlotte for 6 months. When they finally did, it was on Sarah's terms. Boundaries were set. Apologies were made, real ones, not just panic after the money reveal. Rupert tried to ingratiate himself, offering investment advice. Tom politely declined. They bought a beautiful house in Devon with sea views. Sarah started a small charity for widows who'd lost their financial footing after bereavement. Tom funded it quietly. They traveled Italy, New Zealand, a month in Canada. They came home tanned and happy and utterly unbothered by what anyone thought. Charlotte and Rupert? Still together, still pretending everything was fine. But every time they saw a Land Rover, Charlotte went quiet. And that, my friends, is how you do a mic drop British style. No shouting. No drama. Just facts, perfect timing, and a honeymoon in the Maldives to really drive the point home. If you love the story as much as I love telling it, smash that like button, subscribe, and let me know in the comments. Have you ever had a moment where someone underestimated you and then found out the hard way they were wrong? Drop your city and time below. I'm dying to know where you're watching from. See you in the next one.